Please welcome our next panel, The Promise of Public-Private Partnerships for American Workers, moderated by Kristen Silverberg, President and COO, Business Roundtable.
Thank you, everyone. I am thrilled to moderate this final panel with these two extraordinary leaders. We have Julie Sweet, the CEO of Accenture, who is one of the most impactful and visionary leaders in business today. She has led Accenture through a time of great growth and innovation and is a source of insight to lots of our BRT CEOs on what it means to lead in the digital age. We are equally thrilled to have Keith Sunderling, the Deputy Secretary of Labor. He is a passionate proponent of skills-based hiring and apprenticeships, the issues we're going to talk about today. He formerly served at the EEOC and in other positions at Labor. So thank you both. I'm just thrilled to have you. So Julie, let me start with you. Since you took over as CEO, you have really committed Accenture to skills-based hiring. Can you talk about why that was important to you and the impacts you've seen for both for your workers and for your business?
Sure. I just want to start, though, just to say how proud I am to be a member of the Business Roundtable and, listening to the panels, seeing the videos. I've actually been a member for 10 years now. And the commitment of the companies of the BRT to skills-based hiring, to providing pathways is really incredible. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of this organization and with these colleagues. Maybe just to kind of bring to life why this is so important for us, the Secretary just joined me about 2 weeks ago now in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. It is the poorest part of Washington, D.C., Ward 8 and Ward 7. And he joined us for the opening of our cybersecurity center, where we have our first cohort of 50 apprentices. And those apprentices are are learning some of the most important skills we need in this country for competitiveness, cybersecurity. The per capita income in Ward 8 is $39,000. These apprentices start at $60,000. They receive 3 months of intensive training, then 9 months working on Accenture projects with the expectation that they will all be offered a job at the end, so long as they successfully perform over that year. So they're earning and learning. And what does that mean for Accenture? That means we have great talent that stays with us, which we've seen over the last several years of having apprenticeships be a core part of our talent strategy. We're more relevant to our clients because we've got more of the people who have the skills that they need, and our businesses thrive when the communities around us thrive. And that's what we're helping to do in Ward 8. So this is a core part of our business strategy. It is not a corporate citizenship program. It is part of our talent strategy, and it's a part of our growth strategy.
Mr. Secretary, reflect on that, because you have said apprenticeships are the future of the American workforce. The president has given his administration some really ambitious targets around that. Talk about why you see that as such a central issue.
In this administration, President Trump wants to put the American worker first. And how do we do that? And as jobs are coming back to the United States, as manufacturing is coming back, we're excited at the Department of Labor to really focus on a program that is tested, that has been around for a long time, and that's the Registered Apprenticeship Program. And as we can see, that students right now, people in high school, entering the workforce, not everyone wants to go to a 4-year degree. And there's been such a push to the 4-year degree over the last few years, the last few decades. And to the extent it's made apprenticeship programs almost saying that, look, these are for people who don't want to go to school. And that's not true at all. They offer pathways to very, very successful jobs, high-paying jobs, but we have to change the perception of that. And like the program that you just heard about here in DC, that's an apprenticeship for cybersecurity. And think about that. You want to be a cybersecurity expert, you want to get a cybersecurity job, 4-year college, maybe training after that. I believe it's 12 to 14 months where you can actually get a job at Accenture, learning real skills. And that's a prime example of what we're looking at, into broadening apprenticeships outside of the typical vocational trades. When you think about apprenticeships historically, what does your mind go to? plumbing, HVAC. Those are really great jobs, and we need those jobs. But at the Department of Labor now, under President Trump's executive order, which I'll talk about shortly, we want to expand those to high-skilled jobs across the board, across all industries, and that's what we're looking for change. And with the BRT's help and a lot of your members' help, we're certainly going to get there.
So what the Secretary just talked about requires really expanding these programs at scale, taking the kinds of things you're doing at Accenture and doing them all over the country, involving lots of companies. Do you see barriers, Julie, to scaling really ambitiously, and how would we go about tackling them?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. So on the registered side, the Secretary is already working on streamlining that because that has been a barrier. So I would put that aside because I think that's going to get solved. I think the real challenge around scaling is that it takes real knowledge about like how do you access the people for the apprenticeships. You have to be able to teach and have the right skilling and learning. And then it can be costly, right? So if you want to scale, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, Mr. Secretary, about how you're going to scale and the number, but when you want to scale, we have to be able to make that affordable. And so if you think about small and medium-sized enterprises, which are a source of great job growth, it's really usually not, clear how they can provide the training, the support, the sourcing, and absorb the cost where, while apprenticeships may earn less than someone who's experienced, it's still an earn and learn opportunity. And then even at larger companies, who have, challenging economics, and they have to meet their bottom line, there's a difference between being able to do a small amount and a much larger amount for scaling. And so that's where I really believe that the public-private partnership is so important. And I know we're going to talk about some exciting things that we think we can do together in our communities.
Yeah, and this really gets to the core of it. Within his first 100 days, as you all know, President Trump issued a lot of executive orders. But he issued an executive order related to high-skilled apprenticeships. And that is really everything that we all need to accomplish together. And what it says in there is that the Department of Labor must get to 1 million new registered apprenticeships every single year. So I'm begging all of you for me to keep my job. There's an executive order that says the Department of Labor has to do this. But in all seriousness, as you just heard from Julie, how do we, in the sense, and a very Washington, D.C. government word, and I have to use it, deregulate in the apprenticeship area. And part of the executive order requires us to look at all the potential barriers that have really prohibited, whether it's from a cost perspective, whether it's a sign-up perspective, whether it's the red tape around it, employers entering into registered apprenticeship programs through the Department of Labor at scale. And that's what we're trying to do. And if you look holistically at where the state of registered apprenticeships is, again, it's traditionally been in those vocational fields. Between construction and manufacturing, it's over 400,000 registered apprenticeships right now. Let's flip that to business, it's around 4,000. If you look at tech across the board, 40,000. But that pales in comparison to construction, manufacturing, again, where that perception of all these apprenticeships are. But there's like over 1,000 registered apprenticeship categories of businesses that can enter into this. So a lot of it too is going to be a PR campaign on how do we get other companies to get in this. And I really like to talk about the tech industry leading the way in this. If you think about now where students are, they've taught themselves how to code online in middle school, in high school. And to say that you have to now wait after you're 18, go to college for 4 years, then to be able to get that high-skilled tech job, they don't want to wait. And if there's an opportunity, like I say, you can go right from high school to the pros, like a sports analogy. How do we do that here? And that's the apprenticeship program. We're saying you're graduating college, you have some of these skills, you can go work for Accenture, you can go work for any big-name brand you want, but we can't do that without getting the word out there that apprenticeships, registered apprenticeships, are all open to all companies across all industries. And that's really what the crux of the executive order is for us to get out there and sell that. But we can't sell that if it's hard for businesses to be able to enter in that program, if there's too many regulatory barriers, if it's too expensive, if they can't see the return on investment. And I think that's how you would look at it as a CEO.
Absolutely. So first of all, I absolutely love having a goal, because when you have a goal, you can't fail, right? And we believe that apprenticeships are a path to higher competitiveness or a path to better business. And so one of the things that we've also talked about is that there are barriers in accessing money and in how we work together. And I think earlier today in the last panel, they were talking about how many of us have so many great individual programs, and we just are at it, right? We believe in it and we go. I think the opportunity that we have together today with the administration and leveraging the Business Roundtable, and then in states around the world, around the country, being able to leverage the groups there, is to take Business Roundtable companies and their supply chains, which are usually small and medium-sized enterprises, and come together around a model that brings together the funding for some of the education that needs to happen, that perhaps eases the path for the small and medium-sized enterprises, and has us committing to scaling because we're bringing all those pieces together. And of course, the not-for-profit as well, who can help with the sourcing and also some of the soft skills that we often need to bring to these programs. I mean, at the Business Roundtable, we have a great playbook that we helped produce with many of the companies here. And the idea that we've been talking about is, how do we also, like businesses, set a goal to have our first program up and running by the fall? And so I've made that offer, as Kristen has, for the BRT.
BRT too.
So
getting my numbers to $1 million.
So we're looking, I think, Kristen, maybe you can just talk about, because this is the core of what the BRT is doing and why you want to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all want you to keep your job, and we want to help the president reach these ambitious goals. And so one of the things, going to Julie's comment, is how to create replicable models across this. We have a lot of companies like Accenture that have experience in the space. How do we bring that experience to other companies, to small business? And I think one of the really interesting things is thinking about where we start. I mean, maybe you can talk about what makes a good ecosystem, because for kind of launching a program like this, because you need committed companies, which we have, you need a good federal government partner, which we have, but you also need a really committed state and local government and other things. So maybe talk about how you would think about an ecosystem that could really help us move quickly.
Sure, I think it's really, I guess it's a five-legged stool, because there's the educational sources, right, that you have, which can be both private and public. There's state and local. There's the private sector, the federal government, and the state government. So and the not-for-profits, right? And those are the programs that we have seen the Business Roundtable do, and that we have done at Accenture, really have to bring all of those things together. And the barriers we faced in the past is often the ability to bring those together, the ability to access funding. And that's why so often, especially big companies, we just kind of go off and say, well, we can do it, but that's the limit to scale, because we can only do so much. And I think the funding piece, and particularly for the first pilot, is something that can really, help us get going, because states around the country want to help. Non-for-profits, educational institutions, this is something that we all care deeply about, and it's been difficult to do it at scale across companies.
And from my perspective, that's what we're doing through the executive order. That's what we're doing in this administration, is we're looking at all of our funding, all those dollars that go out the door for workforce development, and are they working? We're also looking at this as a business, and for years, whether it's directly through the Department of Labor giving out money, or giving out money through WIOA to our state partners, we're going to really take a hard look and see what the return of investment is in all those dollars. And they're not having those returns. We want to move them to apprenticeships, both from money going out the door from the Department of Labor and talking to our state workforce agencies and saying, this is a goal of ours. This is going to help us solve the workforce crisis we're facing in America, especially with high-skilled jobs, as more of these jobs come back. And we're going to really put it on the states as well. And in addition, helping out private sector businesses who want to engage in this, who've never seen this before. The Department of Labor can help there too, financially.
Well, more to come on our pilot program, but I hope when we reconvene this event, we will have you back and be able to report that we've made a lot of progress in meeting your goals and our goals as well. So, but I want to turn kind of look a little bit farther ahead and think about some of the future of work issues. I mean, you really dug in on these at the EOC, the impacts of AI, how that's affecting the workplace. How are you thinking about those things in your new role, and how is the Trump administration likely to tackle them?
Now it's about training the next generation of workers and our current workforce on using AI tools, learning AI. There's so much fear out there about job displacement about AI. That's all the news. It's been all the news for the last few years. But now as we see AI getting more sophisticated, there's that fear. And we have to dispel of that fear. We have to train our current workers and the next generation of workers on how to use AI, how to develop them themselves. So they're no longer afraid about AI displacement, that they're going to know exactly what AI is doing. They're going to know exactly how to use it to make their lives better, both personally and at work. And how do we do that? We have to start young. Another executive order the president issued within his first 100 days is related to AI literacy. And this is really, really exciting because it takes a step back and says, how are we going to compete on the global stage with an AI? How is our next generation of workers going to learn AI? And in other countries around the world, they're starting to do AI literacy in middle school and elementary school. And that's why this executive order is so exciting. It requires the Department of Education, Department of Labor, and the National Science Foundation to come together to start developing that AI curriculum to get into classrooms as early as possible. And then also from the Department of Labor's side, from that workforce development, unemployment insurance, when people lose their jobs or people want to be reskilled, the Department of Labor, the states have a duty to do that. So how do we then teach AI literacy? And that is very broad. Everything I'm saying related to AI literacy, coding, how do we drill down on what those jobs are? And this is where the barriers need to come down. And this is what I'm most excited about, is talking to companies to see where those jobs are going. So those big companies where all those statistics are coming about, that we're going to replace hundreds of millions of jobs, this and that, industries are going to be completely wiped out. Well, it's not how do we prevent that? What are we going to do with those workers? And what are those jobs you're going to need now that we have technology doing some of those jobs, or now that technology is going to make us so much more productive or build so many more widgets? Where are those jobs of the future? And we don't know that from the government because that's your proprietary information of where you're going with your own workforce. So if we can work together, we can get that information and start training the next generation of the workforce all the way in elementary school and middle school so they have those skills through high school, or if they want to go to college, or if they want to get into an apprenticeship from there, they're already trained and ready to go. But that's going to be a private-public partnership that we all need to do, where you need to basically tell us where those jobs are going. And then we could use that executive order to then fund the states, fund education institutions on those skills, so you have those skills you need so the workers are ready to go.
Julie, even for Accenture's pretty technologically sophisticated workforce, you're really urging them to, move up the learning curve on AI. And what does that look like?
Well, first of all, I think this is extremely important, and that we move at speed, and the focus on both K through 12 and investing in today's workers is really important. And the Business Roundtable has always been focused on both, right? Because K through 12 is about the next generation, but the speed at which we need to do this cannot be underestimated or overstated. And that is what we really need to do differently this time, because I still remember how long it was taken to do, just to try to say computer science mattered, in high school education. So we all need to collectively have a different mindset. And to give you some sense of what is possible, in November of 2022, when ChatGPT emerged on the scene, at Accenture, we had 30 people working on Gen AI, 30 at that time, about half in our R&D labs and half with technology companies experimenting with Gen AI. 2.5 years later, I have 500,000 people who've received the Gen AI fundamentals. I have over 250,000 who've received advanced training, and I've moved from 40,000 to 70,000 plus of deep data and AI specialists. And most of that has been through the investment in learning, because there were not some huge amount of people out there that you could just hire with these skills. This is something that can be done. It can be done at speed, and it can only be done when you think about K through 12 and the broader working community through partnerships and thinking collectively, because the many small and medium-sized enterprises have to have these skills. This is how the consumers are buying. This is what's needed in B2B. And there is a big opportunity that, I think the federal government, and that is the intention of the secretary and your colleagues, is to find a way from a competitive standpoint to work collectively to go at speed. And I can't say enough about how important that is.
You used to chair BRT's technology committee and really launched our responsible AI work long before that became a big national conversation. Can you just say, where are we right now in this debate about responsible AI, and how are the companies you work with tackling that?
I think there's been a big shift, actually, even in public discourse around so much fear as amount of, we have to ensure that AI is used for the good. And so we can see the data of companies who are invested in responsible AI programs. You see the technology ecosystem embedding it in actually how it operates. And so it's absolutely critical to do. And I don't think that's a debate anymore, right? It does go to why the BRT is really important. Where we're trying to let people leverage the things we do, and that was that first program we did, so that people didn't have to come up on their own, like what do they need to think about, and I think that's just grown. So I feel very positive about responsible AI being built in.
And I think that is the key to making all this work. As tech entrepreneurs and companies develop this very sophisticated AI for use on the workforce to make their jobs easier, to learn new skills, what we're seeing at the end of the day, it's really coming down to trust and employee trust. And right now, why companies are having issues with the adoption of AI in the workplace is that they don't believe their employers are using this for the right reason. A lot of employees look at this and say, this is going to be my robot replacement. Why would I use this? Why would I help train this if this is going to eventually replace me in my job? And that's why, companies, I've talked about this at length, and I know BRT, you've done a lot of this too. When it comes to having those responsible AI policies out there, that will then show all the way from the top of the organizations to entry-level employees that here is how we're going to use AI within this organization. And it's going to be used based on these principles, lawfully, et cetera. And that really helps employees buy in. And then once employees buy in, the programs are only going to get better. They're going to see how it's going to make workplaces better. And it all comes back to this broader topic of how do we change that perception? And what we see is that there are a lot of large global organizations, mainly your members on the AI responsible side, that have really embraced this, that have put all their policies, practices, and procedures out there for the public to copy. And you see small and medium-sized businesses will then take that information, integrate it to their own, and then also have responsible AI programs. And that's what I'd like to see, because we had a pattern of success in that with responsible AI. With the AI literacy as well, is you have a lot of these large global corporations, again, your members, that have developed these programs internally on how to train on AI, how to use AI, how to get that adult AI literacy, upskilling, reskilling, whatever you want to call it. And the more companies can lead with that publicly, the more companies can help us with those pre-existing tools that are top-notch, the best of the private sector, to allow us and the government to use those in our state workforce agency. So somebody who's lost a job and wants to reskill can go to a state work agency and actually get a skill that will get them a job for the future, opposed to how a lot of the workforce development training, retraining is now, where a lot of it is very outdated and doesn't have that return on the investment. That's where we really can go. So I think a lot of it is taking organizations in this room, publicly leading, showing you're doing it, whether it's the apprenticeship model, whether it's responsible AI or AI literacy, and making it as public as you can, working with us in a very public fashion. And on that sense, I want to show you something. As part of the AI executive order, we are doing a pledge to America's youth, investing in AI education. So as part of having that AI literacy out in the pre-K through 12, and in addition in the workforce, we're calling on companies, we're calling on education partners to join us in implementing the executive order. You can see it's got the nice fancy logo on here and everything. So we're looking for commitments on that. And it's really companies pledging to invest in America's K through 12 students and teachers, by providing resources that cultivate the skills and knowledge necessary for an AI-ready workforce and the next generation of American innovators. So like I said, it's all coming back. A lot of these companies, you've already developed it, you already have it. Now pledge to work with us for the greater good of the American workforce.
That's fantastic. Well, our amazing BRT chair, Chuck Robbins of Cisco, is up next. So please join me in thanking our panel.